self-made book channel and podcast interview series. I'm Bianca.
And I'm Byron.
And today we are at the fantastic Greenwich University, or University of Greenwich is probably what I should say. If you've not been to this campus before, it is amazing and very beautiful. But we're here to hear more from Jane. Jane is the Vice Chancellor. We're going to hear what it's like to be Vice Chancellor and a bit more about what happens behind a university.
Absolutely.
So, Jane.
Welcome.
Thank you.
So the first question, I guess, is what is the role of Vice Chancellor?
Yeah, it's interesting. Everyone asks me that.
Yeah.
And I've only been doing it for 7 weeks.
Okay.
So I'll give you a new early perspective on
sure.
it. It's probably the nearest equivalent is Chief Executive Officer.
Okay.
So in effect, you're the CEO of the company.
Yeah.
So I'm responsible for every bit of what happens, both to the students and the staff and the fabric of the institution.
Wow.
So it's huge. I mean, if you think about it, we've got nearly 30,000 students.
Wow.
And many of them in the UK, but also many of them overseas.
Yeah.
And we've got 3 campuses with very complicated buildings.
Yes.
Beautiful buildings.
Beautiful buildings.
But they're not just listed. These are World Heritage Sites. So they bring with them all sorts of challenges. We also have staff that we have to recruit, staff that we have to train, develop, and at the same time we have students who obviously expect the best from us at all moments. So I suppose it's a bit like, I don't know what company would be closest. I've always often wondered that.
Yeah.
I mean, someone said to me once, actually, perhaps lawyers might be the closest you'd get. If you think about it, so quite autonomous in how they work, but part of a broader fabric.
Yeah.
So my responsibility is around corporate services. It's around academics, and it's around all the student-facing services.
Okay.
And then I have a board of governors who are equivalent of non-exec directors who hold me to account.
Yes. Wow.
So I don't know if that helps.
Yeah.
Gives
us
a
bit of an understanding. So obviously you're very new to the role.
I am.
When you look back in 5-10 years or however long you're going to be with Greenwich, what would you like your legacy to be? What would you like to have done or achieved during your time here?
Well, I'm ambitious.
Okay.
Yeah. I want this. I think this is a brilliant university, and I want it to be, for as far as I'm concerned, I would like my legacy to be that I have left the best modern university in the UK. I'm quite clear about that.
Yeah.
And what that to me is about breaking down barriers between the perception that universities are places you just come to study and they don't feel safe always for communities. They don't know how to access them. Probably is the best way. So I would like to have each of the campuses, because we have 3. You're here obviously at one.
Yes.
Yours have Avery Hill and Medway and Kent.
Yes.
I'd like each of those campuses to have very distinct identities. So for me, Medway is the heart of science and engineering, and I think there it would be fantastic if we had a university enterprise zone, if we had small businesses setting up there and actually then being able to launch themselves out into enterprise parks and onwards. And there we have the Natural Resources Institute, which is this amazing collection of really world-leading scientists. My legacy there would be that we're known not internationally, and students come from across the world because of the wonderful opportunities that they have to really work with top people around climate change, around sustainability, etc. And then at Avery Hill, real opportunity, that's where nursing and midwifery, paramedic sciences, and all the allied health and education, real opportunity there, I think, to serve the community, to have some primary care trusts working with us in there, maybe even on site, to be able to offer clinics to people so they can come in and actually access, we've got a sports rehab. Wouldn't it be fantastic if we had a sports rehab clinic and the community was using it? And then here, I think we've got a real hive of innovation, entrepreneurship, technology, etc. And I think we could really be known for that. So that would be one thing. The other thing would be, I want us to be the most inclusive university in the UK. And I feel really strongly about that. You all know that actually there's a lot of criticism of universities actually for not having a genuinely inclusive, diverse staff. Well, I think we should change that. And I think we need to put in steps that make a difference. And for me, it's about diversity in its absolutely broadest sense. So I want to see all the different staff groups in the population represented in our staff, but not just at certain levels. You know, we've got to smash that concrete ceiling and get people up there, and we need to do that by actually taking some very particular action.
Because you have a very diverse community of students, don't you? But that you just feel it's not reflected in the kind of the staff and the leadership team. So to speak.
I think it's reflected in many of the staff now, but it's not actually when you get to the senior levels.
Okay.
I think that's, and a part of that will be about actually making sure you've got the career pathways going through. But actually, it's also about giving people confidence. You know, I was at an event last night on breaking barriers for Black, Asian and minority ethnic staff and students, and it's about actually giving people the confidence to be their best selves.
Yes.
You know, to go out there and feel they can do anything. You know, when I started my career, I was one of the very few senior women, actually, when I was a dean. And I know what it feels like. You walk in a room and there's nobody like you, you know, and actually that takes some guts to walk in and deal with that. And I want to give people the ability to actually break through that and feel that they can.
Yes. I love that.
Yeah.
So my whole my background is personal branding, so I'm a big advocate for that, making people feel confident, understanding how to present themselves, market themselves, and build relationships.
Absolutely.
So you're absolutely right. That's such a big part of building that career pipeline, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah, and one of the phrases I use is, I want you to be the best of yourself.
Best version, absolutely.
Because that's all we can ask of people.
Yeah.
But actually, if you have the confidence to be the best version of yourself, then you can go and do anything you want with your life.
Yes.
And you'll know that from the things you've done.
So tell us a little bit about your career to date. How did you get into this position of being Vice Chancellor?
Right, where do you want me to start?
Yeah, I mean, I think from my perspective at university, I think the first time I saw my Vice Chancellor was at my graduation.
Right.
So I think most people I think don't really know about the role or what it takes to get there. So I guess just maybe an overview of, were you always in education? Or how did you end up in this position?
Okay, I was the first member of my family to go to university. And when I went, I had no idea really what I was going to do or what I was letting myself in for. And once, when I finished, I did go and work for a computer company. But I wanted to come back and do a PhD because by then I'd got a sort of bug, I suppose. And I persuaded somebody at the time. Where the university I was at then, there were no PhD students. It was a polytechnic. It had been a polytechnic, very new university. And I persuaded them that wouldn't it be wonderful if I was in the business school, the first PhD student they had. Now they took me on, but they didn't provide a bursary. And that made it really difficult, actually. And so after a year, I started lobbying, telling them this wouldn't work.
Okay.
And actually, that did get changed. And there were bursaries for everyone. So I feel quite proud. That was my sort of starting point. What I was passionate about was actually helping people like myself who perhaps didn't have that confidence or didn't feel they knew what university was to fit in more quickly, because I realised that you could quite quickly transform people's lives. So I taught then for probably about 25 years, which is aging me beautifully. And when I taught employment studies, and so I taught a lot of things around race and work and gender and work and age and work, and I spent a lot of time there helping students through, and actually my frustration was always about what was wrapped around the teaching and how I could make that better. So really a lot of what drove me was I could always see that there could be something better. Also, I'm not very good at doing the same job year in, year out.
Right.
You know, the truth is, I probably, if I wasn't doing this, would have been an entrepreneur, because I like that, you know, kind of challenge, and I like juggling lots of things, you know. And some people hate change. I quite like change, if I'm honest. And so for me, it was about, okay, what next? So I looked after for quite a long time all of the programs, and then PVC. So basically, the head of the business school came up, and I was at UWE Bristol then, and I applied for it. Didn't really think I'd get it. Actually, didn't get it at the first time. They didn't appoint, and I got a coach, and I got it the second time. And I really felt I had something to prove. You know, I was clearly, at that time, I was younger than anyone else. I was the only woman. I felt actually I'm going to show you, you can make a success of this. And that's probably what drove me in that sense. And I did. We got a new business school, £55 million building, which was brilliant actually, because it transformed how we got people into the university. And I realised actually that I could probably make a more difference to more people's lives by having some of those broader roles. Okay. And I think it was then it just kind of occurred to me, and it was about that time where I thought, actually, you are okay doing this. You're not bad at this, you know. And I started feeling more confident. So I think, so that's where it really started. And then I became a deputy vice chancellor, and then I came here.
Excellent.
I don't know if that's the answer.
Yeah. So you mentioned something really interesting in that. You said you got a coach.
Yeah.
So I'd like to, because a lot of people, it's now becoming more common that people get coaches to help them advance in their career or their role. How's your experience of coaching, and how do you feel that helped you? I'm
a big advocate of coaches, actually. And I got a coach because it was after I hadn't got the job, and actually somebody had said to me, you know, you really need some coaching because actually I think you've got lots of great ideas, but you're not confident enough. And I actually then kept that coach for the first year I was in post. And what it gave me was an outsider perspective, which was so helpful. And it was somebody who didn't feel they had to, because often in senior roles, people feel they have to be nice to you.
Yes.
You know, so they'll nod at something you say and they'll say, oh yes, Vice Chancellor, we'll do that. And actually, what you really need is someone who says, why are you doing that? And have you thought about it? And have you know, there's different frameworks you could look at. And it was the most valuable thing I did, actually. And ever since then, at various points, I've used coaches. Yeah. Because I think you have to be careful as well that you don't become over familiar with your coach. So after a year, that was long enough. We both agreed actually that because by that point I was advising her on her career. You know, that's not quite.
You build a bond, a friendship, and then it changes.
Which is partly what you want because you need that connection. You know, I always say to people, you know, the coach has to want to work with you, and you have to want to work with them because it doesn't work otherwise. But inevitably, because of that, you do become actually people who know each other very well over time. So I've tried to change the types of coaches I've had as well.
And what do you look for in a coach?
I look for someone that has something to offer that perhaps I don't. So they have some skills that would be useful for me, or they have a way of thinking that's different from mine. I look for somebody who will challenge, that won't be a yes person. And that will actually help me to be the best version of me, which is what I would look for. I also have used some reverse coaching as well. So when I was at my previous institution, you know, I was very concerned that actually some of our LGBT community didn't feel actually as welcome as they want. So one of them actually used to coach me about their experiences. And I'd really recommend reverse mentoring and coaching. I think it opens your eyes, actually, and it makes you see things through someone else's eyes. So I think you can use coaching in different ways.
Absolutely. So I know there's a barrier, I think, between, you know, the students and the powerhouse of Greenwich University, the Vice Chancellor and so on. What would you like the students, I guess, to know about you?
I would like the students to know that I came from a background where most people I know didn't go on to university, and that regardless of your background, regardless where you've come from, you can achieve. I would like them to know that they can stop me at any point when they see me and ask me anything and tell me anything, that actually I think that's really important. And I'd also like them to know that I work incredibly closely with the student union here, and that I see that as a really powerful partnership where we can actually deliver some of the changes that they want. And the other thing I'd like them to know is that what I want to do is shine a spotlight on everything, so that actually because we don't get everything right, no university does, and where it's not right, that we're not afraid to shine that spotlight, work out what needs to be done to make it better, and then do it. I'd also want them to know that everything I try to do is to make the experience of the students the best it can possibly be.
And what would you say the most common question you get from students are?
About me or about their experience?
Just in general.
General.
Like, when they see you walking through,
What do they?
when they grab your arm and say,
How
"This
many
is
people do
great."
stop?
Yeah, how many do? Yeah.
I guess that's the
That'd be
first question. Yeah.
To start with, they don't, because of course they don't know who I am.
Yeah.
I think
In your previous role, though,
Yeah.
did people?
Yes, they would stop me.
Okay.
They would, sometimes people would, quite commonly, they'd tell me about individual issues they had.
Okay.
So it'd be quite individualised. It might be, I don't know, they could have a problem with an assignment, or they might have an issue with something had gone wrong in their lives. So they might stop me about that. Sometimes they would stop me and tell me about things they'd like. I mean, actually, where I was previously, they always told me they wanted a swimming pool, in fact, quite commonly,
Okay.
which was great, very expensive, but great. Sometimes in fact, the president of the student union, the vice president of the student union were here last night, meeting the team here, which is great. So, and what they would also do is sometimes stop me and ask me how they could manage other staff. So for some of them, they did, because they did know me, they did feel I was approachable, they wanted some hints and tips on how to do that.
Yeah.
So because I see my role as also about coaching them.
Yeah.
So that was part of what I do. But most commonly, it would be focused on their courses, because most of them, that's what they're worried about. Although, of course, people always worry about, and students are the same, they'll always tell you about transport.
Right.
And they'll always tell you about accommodation if it's not okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So they would be the most common.
Yeah. And from your team, I guess from the staff, what would say the most common thing that comes across your desk? I guess a recurring theme, I would say.
Well, at the moment, the most common things they talk to me about is I've been actually asking them. I've been going out meeting all the staff, and I've been saying, what do you like about Greenwich, and what would you change?
Yeah.
What they like about Greenwich is, and they'll tell me, is they love the fact that the staff are very collegiate, that they're very friendly, and that they work together. So that's most common. What they want is more communication and engagement.
Okay.
Which is fair enough, actually. I think we all want that.
With each other, or with you in particular?
Well, with the whole university, because the university is on 3 sides.
Yes.
Of course, that can bring some challenges. So they want actually much clearer communication, both upwards and downwards and across.
Okay.
And I think everybody wants that, don't they? And they also are very keen. So commonly they'll tell me what they think I should be prioritising. And they're very keen and I'm very keen actually, that we have just 3 or 4 priorities that we all buy into. And the students buy into too. I think we all need to, if we all understand where we're trying to get to, I think it's easier to get there.
Excellent.
It's really interesting because I think entrepreneurship has been a theme or a thread that we're seeing in a lot of universities. And throughout your career, it appears you've been quite interested in business and being quite entrepreneurial in your own right. Is that something that you want to encourage across all of the different subjects?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Yes.
Sure.
Because I feel like there's an assumption that if you're a business student or an entrepreneurship student, then you focus on business. But actually now, being entrepreneurial is something that's necessary in every subject. How do you overcome that? How do you get that out there to the...
Well, I think it's also the language, isn't it?
Yeah.
So in some disciplines, enterprise and entrepreneurship's a less useful word to use. So they talk about innovation and creativity. And so for me, I think it's about actually saying, what are those skills that everybody... So I'd like all of the students to have what I would call an enterprising mindset.
Yes.
Because I think then whatever job you do, you can apply some of that. And then it's about actually some of those students then will want to go on and try out their ideas. So I'm very keen that across all the campuses we've got space where students can try things out while they're students. I would then like to have on each of the campuses, you could call it a university enterprise zone or a launch pad or something where actually graduates have a space where they can, actually develop their ideas and be supported to do that. And then we can help them to launch what they've got. So some of them might go into enterprise parks, some of them might go straight into their own businesses. So I think it's thinking through how you can do that to help them. But for me, fundamentally, yes, I think you're right. Every student needs to have what I'm saying is an enterprising mindset. But they need to have that kind of ability, and it's about agility, isn't it? It's about not being afraid to try new ideas. It's about actually being creative. It's all those skills and working in teams. I think people often forget that. They often think of enterprise as being the lone person. Whereas I think we all know, actually, if you work, you always need to pull in experts, and you need to be able to work with those. So that, and I'm very keen that you do that, actually not just for students but for staff as well.
Yes.
Because I think then you start to really change cultures and mindsets.
Absolutely. So if there was someone, actually two messages. So if there's any students out there that are now thinking about going to university, what separates Greenwich from the others, first of all? And then a similar question, but for people who are looking for a job, so teachers, lecturers, and so on and so forth. What sets apart Greenwich from the other universities?
Right. First of all, I think when the staff say to me it's a very friendly institution, I think that you shouldn't underestimate the importance of that. So for me, the students here do get a very personalised experience, and they are actually genuinely looked after by their staff. And I think I think we shouldn't underestimate the importance of that. For a student thinking of coming here, I think it is inclusive as a university. Well, I know it is. It's inclusive. It's very diverse, and it opens up opportunities. And there are lots and lots of extracurricular things that you can engage with alongside your study. And I think so it opens up that wealth of ideas. Also, most of our courses here are either have professional accreditation, or they are linked directly to the industry sectors that people want to go into. So it gives you the best chance to try that out. If I give you one example, I was at the Royal Parks ceremony today because they've just got some money. The first thing they told me was that we've got a number of students working there. The next person I spoke to said, "We love your landscape architecture students. You know, we want to work more with you." So there's a throughput, and they can actually experience it. And for me, that's what's great about Greenwich. Actually, you've got this community that actually see the importance of what we're doing, and see that actually they can work with us, so that our students are both, what I would say, work ready. You know, for when they leave. And if I was saying to staff, why should you come here? I'd say, if you want to join an ambitious university that's dynamic, that wants to be the best modern university in the UK, and you want to work in an inclusive, diverse environment, come along, we want you.
Love it. So if you could ask us one question each, what would that be? Because I always like to put people on the spot. It could be anything.
I suppose I'd be interested, obviously you're a successful entrepreneur, and I'd be interested in knowing what motivated you to do that, and what would you want to say to my students?
So I think I always had that entrepreneurial gene in me without realising it perhaps. So when I was in Greenwich, I was buying and selling cars and really interested in property at the time. So I always had that entrepreneurial dream kind of gene inside me. So I didn't realise it until later when I look back and reflect. So I think whilst at university, it gives you some core skills, networking and public speaking, that you don't really realise it's giving you training for, but you're doing it. So it's giving you some key skills that you don't really know why you're doing them, but they have a great advantage for you later on when you go into that work world or even the entrepreneurial world. And I think in terms of, so that was the first part of the question. So any advice to anybody thinking about being an entrepreneur? Is that the second part of the question? As Bianca likes to say, actually, you know, feel the fear and do it anyway. So, you know, life is too short. You know, dream big. We always like to set our goals astronomically high, and you know, go for those goals. So if we fail, we're only failing by, you know, instead of going for the A star, we get the A. So do it. You know, there's nothing to lose as long as you have the right people in your network, coaches, mentors, using the right tools like LinkedIn and so on. Even whilst at university, these tools are going to help you so much to propel your career or your journey. So use these tools now. Don't wait until you need a job to get onto these tools. Get on there now and start building your brand and your network to help you A, get a job, or B, start a business. So that would be my advice.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
And can I ask you,
Yes.
you were saying about developing personal brand and the importance of people being the best version of themselves. What advice would you give to somebody who doesn't feel confident about that, to how they develop that confidence and ability to be that person?
That's a great question. I think when you're thinking about your personal brand, I think you have to reflect on how you want to be perceived. So even if you're not very confident, what would you like people to say about you? What would you like them to know about you? What would you like, and who would you like to know what you do? Because I think often we just think, okay, this is what we do, and that's it. We don't think about actually, how do people know that's what we do? Who knows what we do? Who should know? How do we increase that network? So if you're not outwardly confident, there's so much you can do now on social media, on LinkedIn and so on, to portray your personal brand to the world. You don't have to be that person that goes out and shakes every hand, goes to every networking event. If you're quite introverted, sometimes you find another mechanism. And, you know, for the people I've coached and worked with, it might be speaking to people that know you and asking, what are my key skill sets? What do you know me for? What do you think I'm not telling the world? Can you have a look at what I've written on my LinkedIn? Does it portray me in the right way? And I think often by getting that external perspective, as you said, by having coaches and mentors, you get an understanding of what you are telling the world and what you're missing. And by knowing what you're missing, you can then tweak it and you can write a better profile. You can reach out to people on LinkedIn for that one-to-one meeting or that one-to-one coffee, as opposed to going to a big event and trying to throw yourself in the deep end, because that doesn't inspire great confidence. But if you are networking, I'm a big advocate for networking, go with someone. Take someone with you that you like, but don't network together. Go separate, work the room, speak to as many people as possible, but have them there as your safety net. So that if you meet someone, you're not comfortable, you're standing by yourself, you've got someone to go back to. I think that's so important. So I think those key skills are essential. But at university, I think just meet as many people as possible, get to know them. They don't have to be on your course, go to some society events and so on, because you never know where your referrals are going to come from. My first job after university was because of someone I was on a course with who wasn't actually a friend at the time. It was just someone on the course that I had delivered some coursework with, and you just never know how that network is going to help. And university is probably one of your first key networks, really.
Without realising it.
Without realising it, you just, and for good and bad. You can be really awful at university, and everyone remembers you for that. Or you could be that really nice, or that really quiet person. So you have to think, what can I do to kind of get myself out there? Yeah.
Thank you. That's brilliant advice for our students. Thank you for that.
Yeah, you're very welcome. Any final words?
Well, I think my final word would be that actually, I think one of the things that students often forget is what they actually are capable of. And for me, it's about I'm really encouraged by what you're saying, because I think it's about how do we really nurture that belief and enable people, because to be the best version of yourself, you've got to have that confidence, haven't you? And I know that it took me a long while to gain that. And I actually think it's how do we help people to gain that more quickly? Because then I think we can start to change the society and some of the things that we need to do.
Yes.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for joining us today and answering those questions. No, you're very welcome.
Thank you very much for tuning in, everyone. So I've been Bianca.
And I'm Byron.
And this is Jane Harrington. So thank you very much. Tune in on our social media platforms for various other interviews, and we'll see you all soon. And remember, self-made
is success.
Bye-bye.